Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Scarlett Cochran, who's here to share with us her new book, It's Not About the Money, A Proven Path to Build Wealth and Living the Rich Life You Deserve. So Scarlett is an attorney, financial expert, and entrepreneur. In her career as a lawyer, she worked on behalf of everyday Americans at government agencies, including Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, where she worked on fair lending issues. Since launching One Big Happy Life, Scarlett and her partner Joseph have touched the lives of millions. She's been featured on Good Morning America, Forbes, CNBC, Oprah, and many more. So let's welcome to the show, Scarlett Cochran.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. What inspired you to write this?
Well, two things. First of all, my own personal journey, just starting out being a single teen mom, working active duty as a full-time Marine, but making $25,000 a year and trying to make a good life for myself and my daughter. And then later on, my experiences as a banking and finance attorney regulating the finance industry here in the US and really seeing firsthand how important access to high quality information really is when it comes to helping people really transform their finances.
So where do you think most people get stuck or hung up with that?
Well, a couple things. First, many of us don't learn much about money growing up, and it's a cycle that perpetuates itself, right? Our parents didn't learn that much from their parents. They passed down what they could to us. And so when we start our adult lives in a world that honestly requires us to make financial decisions from a very early age, it can be just really challenging. It's very much trial and error, hoping for the best, and that doesn't lead to our best outcomes. But also, it's this idea that money is like we often have this pervasive societal idea that money and wanting to be good at money and wanting to build wealth is something that is kind of looked down upon, often shamed. And we rarely get to see figures who have transformed their lives and have learned how to manage their money well and are still good people and use their money for good. And despite the fact that life costs money and we need to make financial decisions all of the time, we're just not equipped with the tools that we need to make those financial decisions. And there are just no formal ways for us to learn about this because it's rarely taught in school.
So how should we redefine wealth then?
Well, what I suggest in the book is that we first start thinking about the kind of life that we want, and then we use that to help us make our financial decisions. Now, oftentimes, the way when we hear about money, we then hear specific rules about what you should and shouldn't be doing. But the problem is that those rules may work for some people and not for others because personal finance, when it comes to the day-to-day managing of your finances and the life that you want your money to create for you, that's going to look different for everyone, which is why it's so important that you first stop and ask yourself, what kind of life do you want to create for yourself? What does a meaningful and rich life look like for you? Because then, first of all, you have goals that you can aim for, right? You know what you want your money to do for you, so you know whether or not you're on track. But also then you can tell your money to do it for you. You can set expectations around how much money you need to make in order to live your ideal lifestyle, how much money you need to be investing in order to build wealth so that you can continue to have the lifestyle that you want even when you're ready to stop working. So it all starts with first deciding what kind of lifestyle that you want and making the commitment to building towards that over time.
So as we define this, the items that are important to us, the type of life that we want to live and continue living, and then coming down to this place where we're looking at how much all of this costs, how do we determine what's really important and maybe what can not really be accounted for?
So there are a couple ways that you can do that. First, we all intrinsically know what some of our likes and dislikes are. Like, for example, from a very young age, I have never liked peas. And even as an adult, when I try to eat sweet peas, which my husband and my children love, but I do not, I still just find the taste to be revolting. I don't understand how other people eat it. And so, just like I've never liked peas, there are other things about me that I know that I've always enjoyed. I've always loved reading books. So buying books has always been a priority for me. So if you think to yourself, just look inside, what are some things that I know that I enjoy spending money on? What are some things that I know are important to me? And not just in your present life, but you also have to get used to thinking about, well, what does future you want to? Because that's how we can start making decisions right now that are actually aimed at benefiting us long term. So, one way is looking at what you already know that you like. A second way is looking at what you know you don't like or experiences that you've had in the past that you've really disliked. So, a good example of that. So, when I first started traveling and really making it a priority to travel, I set my travel budget really low. And so sometimes that led to the experience of traveling being less than desirable for me, where we were staying in places where I didn't feel comfortable or, just weren't as nice as I would like. And so over time, I realized that where we stayed on vacation, that was important to me. And so I, over time, set the goal of building up my vacation budget each year so that I was able to have the kinds of accommodations that I wanted to have in when I took vacations. And again, the way that I discovered that was looking at the friction points, the things that I didn't like so much, the things that I really wanted to change. So so you can look at that as a way of setting your priorities. Another way of setting your priorities, and this one is a little bit counterintuitive, but it's using the twinges of jealousy that you might feel from time to time, especially when you're doing something like scrolling through social media and seeing people's highlight reels. Now, that feeling of jealousy, it actually helps us see something that we desire. And so if you pay attention to that feeling, you can then ask yourself, wow, what is it about this picture or this lifestyle or what I'm seeing here? What is it that intrigues me? What is it about this that I want to have in my life? And again, that can help you find your priorities.
In your book, you talk about how we can change our money story. So, what is that and why would we change it?
Well, the money stories are the ways of thinking about money that we have really internalized, and they're often unconscious. And we learn these in many different places. We learn it from our parents, we learn it from society, we learn it from the movies and shows that we consume, we learn it from friends and family, and we learn it from our own personal life experiences as we go through life. The problem is that not all of these stories serve us in all areas of our lives and in all phases of our lives. And so it's really important for us to learn to recognize the thoughts that we have around money, the stories that we tell ourselves about money, because the thoughts that we have, they really impact the decisions that we make, which then impacts the results that we're able to create in our lives when it comes to our finances and really anything that we're doing in our life. And so when you're encountering financial situations, it's really important to start noting the thoughts that are coming into your mind. And in the book, I share many common money stories, things like, well, I'm this age, it's too late for me, or I've made so many financial decisions in the past. A common one that we all tend to default to is, I can't afford this, when in reality, if we stopped and ask ourselves, oftentimes it is something that we could afford. We just choose to not want to buy it in the moment. And it's so disempowering to tell ourselves we can't have a thing because we can't afford it, when the reality is we could afford it. It's just not a priority for us right now. And as a parent, I know that it's really easy to default to we can't afford it when your kids ask for things rather than have the harder conversation. Like, we have other priorities, child, son, daughter of mine. And so we're not going to purchase this right now. But if this is something that's important to you, let's talk about how we could make this work financially, how you can start saving up for it, and how I can help you hit that financial goal. So that's just an example of how shifting the way that we talk about a situation, the words that we use, and how we think about it will help us feel different and help us make better decisions when it comes to our finances.
So, how about the people out there that are saying, well, this sounds great, but I have so much debt. I don't know if I can do this.
Well, first of all, you absolutely can do this, right? One of the things that I like to say is just really think about this and ask yourself the question, if where which in what situation will I be better off? The one where I just keep doing exactly what I'm doing right now, or the one where I decide to start making whatever changes I can, however small they are. And when you ask yourself that question, you empower yourself and you realize, look, I'm going to be so much better off if I just start making changes. It doesn't need to be drastic, but I'm going to be taking action anyway. So I would rather use my energy and start shifting things now, because I know 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm going to be in a completely different place than if I did absolutely nothing. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, changing the debt money story is one of the things that I talk about in the book. And this is a societal thing that we all have, where debt, I like to say, is the modern day adult boogeyman. If you really start paying attention, start looking at television shows. I mean, take Superman, for example. Even the Kents, they're often in danger of losing the farm. And so that has really set all of us up to fear debt, which again does not put us in an empowering position. The reality is that you can, even if you have debt, you can start building wealth. You can create a debt repayment strategy that allows you to retire your debt on the timeline that you desire to retire it in. You can build financial habits and spending habits that allow you to only take on debt when it benefits you. And you can learn how to take control of your finances even if you have debt. And you can build wealth even if you have debt.
I think that's so empowering for so many people because you often hear of, a lot of people have never grown up with any type of money education. They just are like, here's the checkbook, here's how you fill it out. We don't use those anymore, pretty much. But here it is, and good luck. You got the rest of it. When it really takes a lot more for people to really understand what's all involved in that.
100%. And here's the thing about money, which I talk about in the very first part of the book, just really laying the foundation of money and the way that it works, is that it's something that's continually changing. Just like the way that we live as people has changed so much over the course of human history, but especially in the past 100 years. I mean, think about we have cell phones and the internet and cars that drive themselves, and those things didn't exist a couple of decades ago. Well, on the personal finance side, we have things like Bitcoin and NFTs and things that didn't exist several years ago or 10 years ago, or at least were not as mainstream. And so on top of the fact that we don't learn even the fundamentals, it's also continually changing, which is why I give a framework for understanding the skills that you need to be growing over time in order to stay really knowledgeable and able to change as the world changes around you. And I call those the 7 money capacities. And one of them is to understand money. Now, here's the really good thing. You don't have to know absolutely everything that exists in the world about money and finance in order to make good financial decisions. You just have to know just enough of the information that is relevant to you. So I hope that takes the overwhelm away somewhat when it comes to managing your money. It is absolutely doable. It's a skill that you can grow over time, and it really doesn't have to take that much time.
I know in your book you share about how we should create a 1 year spending plan. What does that look like? And if we get to this point where we're, going out for dinner with the girls, but we're kind of over our budget, what do we do?
So, the 1 year spending plan is my absolute favorite way to budget. Tens of thousands of people have taken on this new way of budgeting, which is instead of budgeting by paycheck or by month or having no budget whatsoever, which unfortunately many people still do, you sit down and you budget for your whole year at once. And what that does is it allows us to really take a longer term approach to the decisions that we're making in our day to day lives. It allows us to be way more prepared because the reality is, here we are, we're in February, and the holidays are truly right around the corner. They're only 10 months away. They're coming. And so often they catch us off guard. We end up overspending because we didn't plan in advance. So the 1 year spending plan allows us to really sit down in advance and make decisions for our best life in advance. So things like, when are we going to go on holidays? What kinds of gifts do we want to be able to gift this year? How do we want to, like, what organizations do we want to be able to donate to? What renovations do we want to make to our house? How much do we want to be investing for our retirement in the future? We put all that down in the 1 year spending plan. And it's actually really simple to do because uh, something like 80% of our expenses are consistent month over month. But that other 20%, that's what really trips us up. And so you mentioned the idea of, okay, well, I've spent all of my eating out budget for this month, but the girls want to hang out. And so I'd say you've got a couple alternatives there. And before I give you the tips, I want to say, and this is an important thing to note, there's the planning of your budget and then there's the actual execution. So your habits and how you go about making financial decisions in the moment. And those are two separate things. And we often treat them as this one thing, but in reality, we could be really good at planning, but not so great at executing. And so that's where we really need to focus. So when it comes to you're faced with an expense that you weren't planning on that is going to push you over budget, you've got a couple options. You can make the decision that, hey, I'm not going to do this, right? I made the decision about how much I want to spend eating out. And guess what? I'm not willing to break into my Hawaii vacation fund in order to eat out again. Then you can tell your girlfriends, hey, how about we take a walk in the park or we do some yoga or you guys come over and we do a potluck. And so that way you're not spending as much, right? So you can look for a lower cost alternative. So there's so many ways that you can address a potential budget oversurge. You can also make the decision that, hey, this is important to me. I want to do this now. Next month, I'm going to spend less on eating out in exchange for being able to do it now. So there's so many ways that you can make those kinds of trade-offs. You just want to make sure that you're doing it consciously, that you're knowing what you're giving up and why.
Do you find it's helpful for people to define what a rich life means to them?
Absolutely. If you don't define what a rich life means to you, then you're really left at the whim of the world, and the world will tell you what a rich life looks like, but then you'll find yourself chasing pathways and reaching this endpoint and still not feeling fulfilled or happy. And that's what you want to avoid. We want to avoid that list of regrets of the dying. We don't want to be on that list. We want to make sure that we're doing the things that truly matter to us, which is why it's so important that when we see an image of happiness and we start to maybe feel an urge that, hey, our lives would be happier if we had that thing, that we actually question that. We ask ourselves why. What is it about that life that's so appealing? And then we also start to ask ourselves, well, if I want to have that life, what would it look like for me? What would I need to do? And is that something that I actually want to do? Right? We all might think that we would love to be Beyonce, for example, but when we think about the cost of being Beyonce, which is training and singing from a young age as a child, and then decades of being in the music industry, being in the public eye, many of us would actually say, hey, I don't actually want that life. And so that's why it's so important that we not just look at the the sunny areas, right? The silver linings of the life, but truly whether or not that life is something that matters to us. And when we define what a rich life looks like to us, then it's easier for us to say no to the things that aren't aligned.
I know earlier we were talking about money stories, and it seems like so many people have them. And I would think that many of those are subconscious. So, how do we recognize these money stories so we can start making positive changes?
Well, because so many of us are not used to even paying attention to the thoughts that we are thinking, because so many of our thoughts day to day are unconscious, it might be easier to just start with the feeling. And the feelings are much more easy for us to notice. So try to notice when you are in a situation that is making you feel, that involves money, and that is making you feel negative emotions like anxiety, shame, frustration, regret. And then when you notice that, then you start to ask yourself the question, what is it? Why do I feel this way? What's causing me to feel this way? What thoughts am I thinking here? And just asking yourself those questions, your brain will just automatically start to answer them and give you ideas for where these feelings are coming from. And that's how you start to recognize the story. And then over time, you'll actually get better and better at just noticing what you are doing. You know, you'll see you missed a bill, you got a late fee, you feel angry. And normally you would just feel angry and immediately say, well, I hate paying bills. The bills are so annoying. But when you ask yourself, hey, why am I actually angry here? You might be able to say, you know what? I'm frustrated with myself that I missed this bill, that I now have to pay this extra money when I wanted to use my money for something else. And that, just being able to recognize that, will move you away from the knee-jerk reaction of, oh, I hate bills, bills are so annoying, to, oh, I see what the issue was here, right? It's not that the bills are so annoying. I'm just frustrated that I let this slip through the cracks. And then from there, once you start to recognize those things, you can then decide how you want to think about it. So again, instead of begrudging, writing the check, sending the e-check, paying the bill online, and being angry about it even afterwards, you can, again, self-soothe and say things like, look, okay, this happened. We messed up. That's all right. You know, I'll make sure not to do this again. Let me think about how I want to make sure that I don't pay these bills late anymore. Maybe I could put it on auto pay. Maybe I can put it on my calendar so I know to look out for this bill and pay it so this doesn't happen again. It's not the end of the world. I can bounce back from this financially. What a great learning experience. Let's move on. And again, just being able to pivot the way that you're thinking about something, now you feel so much calmer. You pay the bill, you move on, you feel good about the rest of your day, which is why it's so important that we learn to recognize these money stories.
What positive tip would you like to leave our listeners today?
The main thing that I would love to leave everyone with today is this idea that where you are starting financially right now, this is just the beginning. It doesn't decide what's possible for you in your life. And there's so much available to you if you just allow yourself to believe that you deserve a different future. That is where it starts. And then you can start doing the work day by day, step by step, of making the kind of changes that you want to see with your finances and your life.
So, Scarlett, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
They can find me at One Big Happy Life everywhere.
Makes that pretty easy, right? So,
Yeah.
well, Scarlett, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Scarlett. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, It's Not About the Money, A Proven Path to Building Wealth and Living the Rich Life You Deserve. It's Not About the Money is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and everywhere books are sold. And if you don't see it on the shelf, just ask for them to order it. And remember, support our indie bookstores. On that note, we're going to pause here for a quick moment, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Are you feeling disconnected from your life and your body as a woman? Do you feel numb emotionally and/or sexually and just not sure how to feel really alive again, or maybe for the first time? Are you struggling with body and self-acceptance, especially during menopause? If you'd like to reclaim your feminine and learn more about woman and gynecology and how it can help empower your life, contact Gina Cloud at www.ginacloud.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.